Spurgeon here with RevZilla, and today I am coming to you from Solid Performance KTM and WP Service Center. Now, we're here today because we have a special treat in store for you. Actually, we have a special treat in store for me. So for the past couple of days, I've been getting to ride a stock 790 Adventure R around, but today I'm gonna get to test a 790 Adventure R Rally. Now, you're probably thinking, Spurge, how did you land that? There's only 500 of those bikes in the world. They gotta be pretty hard to come by. They are. So we're not gonna actually be testing one of the limited edition, numbered 500 bikes with the fancy blue tank, but what we are gonna do, with the help of Evan and his crew, is we're gonna transform this stock 790 Adventure R into a rally spec bike. That means it's gonna have the taller rally seat, the wider rally foot pegs, electronic cruise control, quick shifter, a Krapovich exhaust, those carbon fiber tank shrouds, and most importantly, it's getting the WP Pro Components cone valve suspension. Now, from what I'm told, this is the creme de la creme of adventure bike suspension, and I am looking forward to testing it to see exactly how good it really is. Now, the way that we were able to swing this is that once we're done with the build, we have to pass it off to Mike Lafferty. Mike's the guy in charge of KTM's East Coast demo fleet. He's also won a couple of enduro races, so I'm told. And the real idea here is that if you are one of the folks that's lucky enough to have scored one of those limited edition 500 bikes, we're gonna let you know how good it really is. But more importantly, if you are riding around in a KTM 790 Adventure R, we're gonna show you exactly how these components fare so you can decide if you wanna upgrade your bike to a rally spec edition of your own. So enough talking for right now. Let's build this bike out and let's hit the trail.
It's like a Rubik's Cube. You just kind of take your time rather than just yank on it.
Green means good.
So we're out, we're getting to ride the bike, finally. I've had a chance to ride the 790 in stock form for the past couple of days, and it's been super exciting for me. I've wanted to ride this bike for a while now. I'm a 1090 owner, and I was really looking forward to finally figuring out exactly how good the 790 Adventure R was in its base form, and the opportunity to get to ride it now as a rally package has been nothing short of a hoot. But I do want to dive in a little bit and just talk about some of the basics of what the 790 is in its regular trim, starting with the engine, because a lot of this stuff hasn't changed when we talk about the rally build. So the 790 has a 799cc parallel twin engine, which is carried over from the 790 Duke. Now it does get a different state of tune, so less top end horsepower. The 790 Adventure R is running about 95 horsepower, where the Duke was around 105. However, this bike does get a scooch more torque. So I think this is right around 66 foot-pounds of torque versus 64 foot-pounds of torque. Now, the biggest difference that you'll notice is actually where the power comes on. So with the 790 Duke, you really had to get it up to around 4,500, 5,500 RPM before the power came on. Here, you can get it down to about 3,000 RPM before it really starts to lug on you. So 3,000, 3,500 RPM, the engine starts to come to life. Now, much like a lot of other KTM adventure bikes, if you drop too low below that 3,000 RPM mark, it does start to buck, and you have to slip the clutch a little bit to get it rolling. The biggest difference between the 790 Adventure and some of the other larger adventure bikes within KTM's line is that this is going to utilize a cable clutch. And my initial reaction is that I do not like the feel of the clutch on this bike as much as the Magura hydraulic clutch that I have on my 1090. This just doesn't have the same friction zone. This is very on-off towards the end of the lever throw. What I will say, however, is that having a cable clutch is much more convenient should you need to repair it on the side of the trail. You can just carry a spare clutch cable with you, and you can make that change on the side of the trail. This also will have a sophisticated electronics package, so you now have lean and angle sensitive ABS and traction control, anti-wheelie control, 3 different riding modes on the street. So you have street, off-road, and you have rain, and then with the Adventure R you also get rally mode. And that is stock on the base 790 Adventure R. And really what that allows you to do is you can go in and you can fine-tune everything. So you can set the amount of slip the traction control has, you can turn it off completely. So that's how I like to ride it. I like to ride it with the traction control completely off and the ABS in off-road mode. So slightly reduced ABS in the front wheel and off completely at the back. But the real excitement is, what do all the rally upgrades mean for this bike? So we changed the suspension, the seat, the larger pegs, and to really be able to talk about that, we need to get off-road. So let's go find some trails and we will dive into the rally section of this review. So off-road is where this bike excels, and I say that with the stock 790 in mind, as well as the new rally build out that we did. I mean, keep in mind that stock 790R had quickly been winning my heart as the new favorite for off-road adventure bike riding. I mean, the stock suspension has got fully adjustable components with the Explorer fork and shock. You got 240 millimeters of travel, which is like 9.5 inches, so class-leading suspension on that bike as it is. And then when you jump up to this rally build, oh my God. The suspension is like plush and firm at the same time. Now keep in mind, I mean that in the best way possible. You can roll over sticks and rocks and it feels very plush, but then you can take bigger hits and whoops and it just soaks it right up. So it's definitely impressive. Now keep in mind, I will break down everything you're going to be getting with the WP Pro components. I actually got a chance to take one apart. So
the rebound and the compression crosstalk. You make a clicker change, you will feel it.
Make sure you check out the article for all the details on that. But really what you need to know is you're getting maximum adjustability and tunability out of the suspension, but you're also getting 270 millimeters of travel. So that's roughly 10.5 or 10.7 inches of travel. So, I mean, if you can bottom this thing out, I'll buy you a cookie. You're a better rider than I am. So just keep that in mind. I mean, massive amounts of travel, and yet it doesn't wallow. It feels firm. Like you can see these hits and it's just like, I don't know, man. It's pretty damn good. Now, there's definitely a big weight difference here too. We threw this one on the scale after we were done with it. It was 468 pounds. So a lot lighter than a lot of the other bikes out there, and it's a very nimble, lean chassis. It's very compact. It just feels like that weight is a lot lower and it handles itself really well. I'm sure that there's a lot of you out there on the 790s already that can attest to what I'm talking about. That being said, keep in mind that all that suspension travel does have an effect on the seat height. So we measured the stock seat of the 790 Adventure R and it came into about 35.5 inches. Now, I know KTM says it's like 34 and a little over 34.5, but we actually measured it about 35.5. And the rally seat height, we measured at 37.1 inch. So it is a tall bike. I mean, it's a bit narrower than the 1090, so slightly easier reach to the ground in stock form. But for those of you that like to have 2 feet firmly on the ground, this is probably not the best option for you. Now, what I will say is that Pro Component suspension, you can adjust the height. We have it built out to 270 mil for rally spec, but you can go lower, you can go to 240, you can go lower than 240. And the beauty of that is you can do that without affecting the performance of the suspension while still giving yourself a ride that you are comfortable on. Again, if you're the kind of rider that likes to have both feet firmly on the ground, this is probably not the bike for you. If you are, however, an individual that is looking for the best adventure bike on the market for going off-road, I think you're going to have a hard time beating the 790 Adventure R, but especially this rally build. So watch this. Alright, so I'm going to go keep riding. I'm going to ride right to Mike's house. He's not far from here. I will check in with you once I get there. All right, so my time with this 790 Adventure R project has come to an end. I am here at Mike Lafferty's compound, and he's around here somewhere probably waiting to steal this bike away from me. So before he rips this from my hands, I just want to say that I had an amazing experience with this bike, and I've got so much information that I really want to dive into. So just keep in mind that we'll do a quick little wrap up right now, but if you want all the nitty gritty on this, make sure you're checking out my Common Tread articles that I'll be writing about this experience. Let's start off by just talking about the 790 Adventure R in true stock form. So that bike comes in around $13,700 in its base package. And really my first thoughts with that bike riding it were, you know, I've gotten a chance to ride pretty much all the modern adventure bikes out there right now, and the 790 Adventure R is the bike to beat if you are riding off-road. I mean, hands down, it feels like you're riding a big dirt bike. Now, that doesn't mean that I love everything about this bike in stock form. You know, some of the quick examples off the top of my head are the clutch. I don't like it as much as the clutch on my 1090, and the traction control package, honestly, it keeps kicking back on. Anytime you stall the bike or hit the kill switch, traction control comes back on, and it got to be a pain in the ass. Now, the 790 Adventure R Rally package, that comes in around $19,500, and it is limited to 500 units around the world. The way that I see that bike, it's kind of a bargain. Now, stick with me for a second. When you think about the super sport world of motorcycles, there are a ton of race replica bikes sitting on dealership floors that you can go, you can buy, you can pick up, and you take to the racetrack, and you can pretty much run the snot out of them in true stock form. But in the adventure world, anytime you buy an adventure bike, you have to outfit it if you really want to take it and ride it off-road. When you're looking at the Rally, this is the adventure equivalent of one of those super sport race bikes. You get the performance suspension, you get the tall rally seat, you get the foot pegs, you get the exhaust, you get all that stuff, but you know, it's in a ready to go package. You can take that bike off the floor and you can go rip. Now, I will say that with our build out, and this gets into where the bargain price comes into play. So the Rally package is $19,500. Our build out came to around a little over $21,000. So let's kind of break that down for a second, because we didn't put everything on here from a price perspective that is on the Rally package. We didn't put the quick shifter on, we didn't put the electronic cruise control on, and we ended up not going with those carbon fiber tank covers. We just stuck with the regular ones. And to supplement some of that, the reason we did it was we wanted to add in Enduro Engineering handguards and a skid plate, because I have kind of a reputation of breaking levers off, and I didn't want to give Mike his brand new bike with a few levers missing. So I did feel like adding a bit of crash protection was necessary. That's not going to be on the regular Rally package. The three main factors that stuck out: the Rally foot pegs, I would want to have those. I have them on my 1090, I absolutely love them. The taller Rally seat made it much easier to transition up between standing and sitting, and I didn't feel like I was sitting down in the bike as much. And honestly, I wasn't as intimidated with the tall seat as I thought it was gonna be. Now, I say that as an individual that's 6'3", but it still was a pretty easy reach to the ground considering how narrow this bike is. And the final thing is the WP Pro Components suspension. I mean, it really is a completely different machine. Earlier, when I started this off, I said I wasn't gonna get into too much of the nitty gritty. And when we start talking about the suspension setup, I mean, short of getting, you know, Evan from Solid Performance on the phone right now and have him given a full debrief, which none of us would understand because the guy's like a mad scientist, what I will try and do in the article is break down some of the suspension components in layman's terms so you can really understand what you're getting with this, and if you decide you want to add it, where you can find those components at for your 790. But in closing, I gotta find Mike and see if he'll take this bike away from me before I throw it in the back of my truck and take off. And speaking of which, I need to see if I can get Mike to give me a ride back to my truck, because it's actually still back in the woods where I parked it. So for right now, if you want more content, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, or head over to Common Tread, where you can read all of my content that I will be putting out on the 790 Adventure R Rally build project. For me right now, I'm done enjoying the ride, and I am gonna go find Mike. Hey, there you are. I'm looking for you. Brought your bike back.
I'm glad to see you washed it.
I brought it back for you. I wasn't gonna clean it. I figured you're probably gonna go out and ride anyway.
Where's your truck?
So actually, that's the funny part. My truck is back in the woods still. So if you could give me a ride before you take this out, I would appreciate that.
That's probably not gonna happen. Since you still got this thing dirty and I'm geared up, I'll take it out and show you what it really can do.
You're not gonna give me a ride back to my truck, but you're gonna take it bike out and ride.
You can Uber from here.
That's cold, man.